Hey there, Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here. Welcome to day 232 of our Get Your Goals Annual Challenge. Today, like every day this month, we are focusing on communication values, and our topic is ethics, morals, and values in our communication. Why is it important? Why do you care? Why should you make sure that you are communicating your standards, your principles, your boundaries, your ethics, morals, and values in your communication with, and it of course depends on the audience, but that you're including those things so that you can live and be true to who you really are. Now, ethics, morals, and values are totally, like most everything, a very personal decision, and it's personal to us. My ethics, I don't expect anybody else to live up to my standards except for the people I'm in close relationships with, but I share those expectations with them so they know what to expect from me and what I expect from them. And we communicate that by sharing expectations. One of the cool things I did in corporate America and spread into my own businesses was as soon as I would onboard a new person or a new person would come into my organization or I'd hire a new person, we spent weeks onboarding, learning about the company culture. The first thing we did though is we would sit down and we would have an expectation sharing. I told them what my expectations were of them in their role that they had joined our organization for, or in my life in relationships, and they did the same thing. If they couldn't tell me what they expected me and how I was supposed to help them to learn and grow and assimilate into the culture and do their job better, then we had a problem right off the bat in terms of communication and styles, and we had to address that so that people that joined our organization would be successful, because the more successful the people are that we bring into our organization, the more successful we and our organization are. So what does this mean, and what does it have to do with anything that we're talking about and with communication? Core principles of ethical communication are things like honesty, trustworthiness, transparency, being authentic. People know that when you say something, they can take it to the bank, that you are true to your word. Respect for diversity is important in communication, and you define what diversity is for you and what that means to you, because boy, our world right now has taken diversity and blown it up, and they're emphasizing things that would be considered racist instead of actually appreciating, acknowledging, and celebrating real diversity. Because the truth is, we are all different. We are all diverse. We all have different experiences, different backgrounds, different beliefs, different thoughts, feelings about everything. And that, if we can tap into what's unique and special about each person and bring that into the world, then we are truly paying attention to diversity, not just making up rules and guidelines and thoughts that people should think in terms of that particular topic. So we want to respect diversity and accountability. Accountability is a very important ethical and moral and value-based choice and decision. Are you 100% responsible for your decisions, choice, emotions, reactions, actions, etc.? Guess what? If you are not, you're giving your personal power away to other people or entities. And I say we always want to own our personal power. And that means with our personal power comes personal responsibility and accountability, meaning we're going to make mistakes. We're all human. But if we're accountable and responsible for the choices and the decisions that we make, we also are responsible for the consequences of those or the benefits of those decisions and choices that we make. And finally, fairness and equality. And again, these are things that need to be defined for you and by you. I think fair and equal, none of us are equal. None in life is definitely not fair. I learned that as a little girl. My dad taught us girls that, my sisters and I, life isn't fair. If you're expecting everybody to get the same amount of everything in life, you're going to be sorely disappointed. Why? Because life and the universe are an exchange of value. If you put more into the world, you get more out. You receive more. If you put less into the world, you receive less. And that's just the way it is. So what we define as more and less and fair and equitable probably is not the same as everybody else or hardly anybody else. So we want to remember to include those in how we approach the world and how we approach our communication. Now, my best and biggest rule of thumb is something that we all probably learned in kindergarten, or we should have learned in kindergarten. Treat people the way you want to be treated, right? if we treat people the way we want to be treated, chances are we'll be making a better decision than if we treat people in different ways than we want to be treated. If you treat people disrespectfully, that person might not treat you disrespectfully, but you're going to be disrespected by someone else. If you bully someone, the person you bully may not stand up for themselves and may not bully you back, but you will find yourself being bullied in other situations or other communications, etc. So be careful what you put out into the world, I guess is my lesson and warning here. And this is a hard fact, but often we need to look in the mirror, because when we feel like we're experiencing a certain thing, a certain feeling, it's probably because we're putting a similar energy out into the world. I just did the personality disc analysis as part of our daily challenge a couple of days ago, and for the second time now, I've come up as an ENFJ instead of an ENFP. And it's the difference between perceiving and judging. And it bothers me because I consciously try to not be judgmental. But over the last year or so, my daughter informed me that I have become much more judgmental than perceptive and perceiving. And I would have to agree with her. There have been some stressors and things that have happened in my life that have caused me to be more judgmental. Now, when I look in the mirror and think about this, it is because I am judging myself more harshly. And usually, if we're willing to look inside and do some self-reflection, which is our action item today, we will find that what we're seeing show up in our world, and that's a prime example of it for me personally, is because we are doing it to ourselves, or we are behaving that way. So I'm being much more judgmental on myself and much harder on myself, which means I am judging other things and other people and other situations more harshly than I want to as well. So what happens if we, and this is a highly charged and emotional topic for me personally, because I hold myself to a high ethical standard, probably much higher than a lot of people do, but I do that consciously because when I was younger, I learned some tough lessons about not being true to myself, not holding myself above that line in the sand of behavior. And it's a slippery slope, right? When we give ourselves permission to not be honest with ourselves, to not treat ourselves the way we should be treated, all of a sudden we find ourselves treating other people in ways that we wouldn't want to be treated. And it's a slippery slope. If you tell a little white lie and another little white lie and you get away with it, or you give yourself permission to, or you make excuses for why that's okay for you to do in this situation, before you know it, the lies are getting bigger. The misbehaviors or the things that go against your real identity become bigger, and you just scoff or write them off as okay for you. And before you know it, you hardly recognize yourself when you look in the mirror. So we want to be careful of that. Lack of our morals and ethics and values, our core values, lack of us living and being true to them damages, number one, it damages our identity, our reputation, our ego. It can cause a loss of trust. It can cause legal issues. I don't know about you, but I don't like legal issues, and it will have a negative social impact. I think we're seeing this. It doesn't take long to look around, at least here in America right now. Look at the news media. Look at the politicians. Look at how people are treating one another. Look at the conversations on social media, and you will see so much negativity, so much bad, unacceptable, criminal, unethical, immoral, evil behavior. It's mind-boggling. Now, I'm not out looking for that, and I try to keep my social media and all my things on a track that's consistent with what and how I want to show up in the world. But even I get sucked into the negativity sometimes, and so it's a conscious thing to be living true to our goals and our values and our ethics. And again, I could probably talk about this for an entire day because it's such an interesting topic, and it's so in our face that people say one thing and do another. To me, that's not ethical, right? That's not moral. If you promise you're going to do something, number one, other people, you might get away with it with other people, but you know inside if you didn't do something you said you were going to do. I think one of the best things we can do is hold ourselves accountable to doing what we say we're going to do, being honest, at least with ourselves, when possible. So what's our action item today? Today we're just going to become more self-aware. We are going to consciously pay attention to, in our communications, are we being true to ourselves, our ethics, our morals, our values, etc.? Are we in alignment with that? And if we're not, we need to find a way to bring ourselves back to center. And usually that is just asking yourself, why? Why am I doing this? Why did I behave that way in this particular situation? Why did I tell a little white lie and say that that outfit looked great on my sister? Well, I didn't want to hurt her feelings. Okay, but that's a slippery slope, right? So it's better just to not say anything than to go against. I would say it's always better to not say anything than to go against our own authenticity, our own reality, our own ethics, morals, and values. So love to know your take on this. Have a great day. It's Sunday in my neck of the woods, so I will be with you tomorrow.